I never thought something as simple as stepping outside my own front door could change my life. But that's exactly what happened the night my HOA decided they had the power to dictate not only what my family could do with our property, but what I could do with my own freedom. It all started 6 months after we bought our house. My wife and I had moved into what we thought was a quiet, friendly, gated community. We were sold on promises, safe streets for our son, well-kept lawns, and peace of mind. But peace is the last thing we got. Instead, we got rules. Rules so suffocating they felt less like guidelines and more like shackles. At first, it was little things. A letter because my grass was half an inch too tall. A fine because I left my trash can by the curb for a few hours too long. Annoying, but manageable. But then came the outrageous decree: no resident shall be outside their home between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. When I read it, I laughed out loud. What is this, a prison camp? I asked my wife. But she didn't laugh. She'd already seen the board meeting notes. They claimed it was for safety. I knew better. It was about control. At first, I tried to shrug it off. But then reality hit. I work late shifts. Sometimes, I need fresh air after a long day. And my teenage son loved sitting on the porch to stargaze. It calmed his anxiety. Now, technically, just being outside could get us fined. Or worse. The night it all came to a head, I was standing on my porch at 8:15 p.m., sipping coffee and looking at the stars. I didn't think much of it. Then headlights flashed, and a black SUV rolled up. Out came 3 men, HOA, security, though they were just volunteers in matching polos with radios. "You're violating curfew," one barked. I almost laughed. Curfew? I'm not 12 years old. I'm on my own property. You've been warned. Step inside, or we'll escalate. Escalate? I asked. Are you seriously threatening me for standing in my yard? That's when one of them shoved me. Hard. My coffee spilled, my heart pounded, and before I knew it, the 3 of them were circling me like I was some criminal. Something inside me snapped. I'm not a violent man, but I've served my time in the military. I know how to defend myself. So when the second guy lunged, I sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and sent him sprawling into the grass. The third tried to swing at me, but I blocked and shoved him back. Adrenaline surged, but I didn't lose control. I fought back just enough to defend myself, never more. My wife came running out screaming, our son crying behind her. "Stop! What are you doing?" she shouted. The men froze when she said the words they weren't expecting: "I'm calling the cops." That's when their confidence cracked. They weren't police, they weren't military. They were just bullies playing sheriff. And now they knew real law was on the way. When the officers arrived, I braced myself. Would they believe me, or the HOA? I'll never forget the look on the sergeant's face as he listened to both sides. The HOA guys tried to paint me as violent, but the body cam footage told the truth. They'd started it. The sergeant shook his head and said words I'll never forget: "You can't enforce curfews on private citizens. And you sure as hell can't assault them on their own property." One of the HOA enforcers was arrested that night. The other 2 were cited. And suddenly, the mighty HOA didn't look so mighty anymore. But it didn't end there. They tried to retaliate with fines, threats of foreclosure, even smear campaigns at community meetings. That's when I decided enough was enough. I gathered every neighbor who'd been bullied by the HOA, every family fined for nonsense, every kid yelled at for riding a bike too fast. And together, we filed a petition to remove the board. It wasn't easy. They fought back with lawyers, scare tactics, and intimidation. But we were united. Meeting after meeting, we stood our ground. And in the end, we won. The corrupt board was voted out, new leadership was elected, and the ridiculous 8 p.m. curfew rule was struck down permanently. Today, when I sit on my porch at night, sipping coffee under the stars, I feel something I hadn't in months: freedom. My son sits next to me sometimes, pointing out constellations, his anxiety soothed by the quiet of the night. My wife smiles again, no longer living in fear of letters and fines. The whole ordeal taught me something important: HOAs may have power, but they don't have absolute power. Bullies, whether in uniforms, suits, or polos, can only control us if we let them. And that night, when I stood up to them, I realized something: sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply say, no. Not here. Not in my home.